Number 10. Astronaut sightings. Who better to trust about what's going on in space than people who have actually been to space before? That's right, numerous astronauts over the years have reported seeing things that they think might be UFOs. Buzz Aldrin was one of the astronauts aboard the Apollo 11, and during their journey they all reported seeing flying objects. Of course, space debris exists, and it could just be some metal junk that was adrift in space. But then why did they report that the objects appeared to be following them? When they thought that it might have just been a detached part of the rocket that was flying alongside them, they were informed that this piece was actually 6,000 miles away from them, and they definitely wouldn't have been able to see it from that far away. He also said that when they brought it up, they were briefed to not talk about what they had seen out in space. Well, the government can try all they want to cover things up, but eventually word always gets out.
Number 9. Jacob's Ladder. The Bible survives off of continued attempts at interpretation, and the story of Jacob's Ladder is no exception. The tale goes that Jacob was on his way to Haran and had stopped for a rest. While he slept, he had a pretty trippy dream. He dreamt that angels were ascending and descending upon a stairway to heaven that was resting on the earth. Jacob saw the Lord in the heavens above the ladder, and the Lord told him to go in every direction spreading the word. Which kind of sounds like a ladder from a spaceship touched down and the aliens were like, hey, tell people so we can, I don't know, have dinner or something. Like, we might be able to have a last supper before we leave. Sorry, what? Was it just a fever dream, or did Jacob accidentally wake up during a space invasion? Number 8. Ezekiel 1:1-28. While the prophet was being held captive at Babylon in 594 BCE, Ezekiel, like the bread, had an intense vision that has sparked a lot of discourse surrounding a potential alien visitation. Firstly, it involves the cherubim, which, as I mentioned, had to be some sort of extraterrestrial, but there is an allusion to, well, a spacecraft. Here is the actual passage. As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually, and in the midst of the fire, as it were, gleaming metal, and from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had a human likeness, unquote. So, gleaming metal, human likeness. Everyone's thinking it, I'm just saying it. Aliens. Also, if you're gonna give me hate in the comments for, like, I don't know, blasphemy, you clicked on this video, you knew what it was gonna be about. Just saying. Number 7. The Ascension of Elijah. A lot has changed since the Bible was first written. We've learned a lot since the Bible was first created. One, that the earth is not flat, that we actually orbit around the sun, that the stars are actually giant balls of gas constantly combusting, and that there is a strong possibility that life exists out there in the universe. So now, when modern onlookers take a look at the tales from the Bible, some new ideas are coming to the surface. For instance, what if the ascension of Elijah was actually an early alien abduction? The Bible describes that he was taken up by the Lord in a chariot of fire. The chariot of fire is the main point we are focusing on here. Given how many modern UFO sightings talk about bright lights moving in the sky, could this chariot have been a UFO? An unknown, glowing, flying object that must have boggled the minds of us muggles on the ground? Maybe the fire was the engine shooting away. Now that's a revelation. Speaking of revelations, let's talk about Revelation 9:7-11. The flying alien locusts that are foretold to destroy the earth, and I quote, "The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers like scorpions, and in their tails they had the power to torment people for 5 months." Unquote. Flying alien horse locusts? Some theorists say that this particular passage describes war machines of the future, that perhaps whoever visited them had armored planes that could only be compared to what people then already knew. Number 5. The Flying Scroll. Here we have yet another potentially misinterpreted image. I wonder if the ancients played the same game we play with clouds. You know, like, that's a scroll, that's the Lord, that's an angel. In the opening verses of Zechariah, they describe a flying object that's, and I quote, "The length thereof is 20 cubits and the breadth thereof is 10 cubits, unquote, and continues to be interpreted as a flying scroll or roll. Though it's a pretty general description, many modern interpretations based on UFO sightings wonder if it was similar to a saucer, or perhaps cigar shaped like others that have been seen in the news. Number 4, the star above the manger. Now back to my reference to the most beautiful Christmas song ever, A Spaceman Came Traveling by Christopher. This is kind of how I picture the Christmas star story, that a spaceman traveled for light years, suddenly touching down on Earth to the awe of the people. His ship was a massive light in the sky, which I wonder. For the 3 wise men to find little baby Jesus at the manger, the story goes that they followed the brightest star in the sky. But what if it wasn't that? What if it was an alien ship hovering over that spot, leading them towards the little manger? There is one such man, a UFO enthusiast named Richard Lawrence, who believes this was the case, and even goes a step further, that Jesus was an alien himself. When greeted with skepticism, Lawrence has stated, and I quote, "I wouldn't call him an alien, I'd call him a great cosmic intelligence. But yes, alien, if you'd like," unquote. Number 3, Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah is probably one of the more well-known Bible stories. It takes place in Genesis 19. You know, the 2 most sinful cities to ever exist. So sinful that God decided to level them to dust. Though he did warn Lot and his family to escape, but he did say that if they look back, they will turn into salt, which is exactly what happened to Lot's wife when she glanced back. In verse 28, Abraham describes the site of the ruined city, unquote. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land like smoke from a furnace, unquote. Kind of reminiscent of an explosion, perhaps something as large as a nuclear explosion. Alien enthusiasts believe that this actually may have been exactly that, a nuclear explosion sent by aliens, or that they introduced them to the technology. Even during the Crusades, where the 2 cities were supposed to have been, travelers noted that nothing grew there. Number 2, the giants. The Watchers were described as a group of angels that served as the eyes of God, but they grew lustful and decided to take human wives. One of the verses in Genesis 6 describes this, quote, "When man began to multiply on the surface of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose," unquote. These hybrid angel children were described as massive, bloodthirsty giants called the Nephilim, which Uriel later drowned the world. He literally, Noah's Ark, that whole thing. Yeah. Now what this could be was alien intervention with the humans living on Earth to see if they could breed, and it went horribly wrong. So the aliens destroyed them so they could start a clean slate. Whether you believe it or not, it is a theory ancient astronaut theorists cite when trying to prove aliens interacted with humans. And last but not least, the archives. The Bible that is in circulation today is one of many copies and interpretations. It is morphed between, put things in, taken things out over thousands of years. And a lot of the original information is hidden in the Vatican archives. There are thousands of historical documents kept hidden from prying eyes in the Vatican, and for some reason, Pope Paul V ordered a certain section of documents to be locked up till 1881. Some believe the information regards the enigmatic Giordano Bruno, believed to have met or was an alien, and even more suspicious secrets pertaining to the Fatima mystery. In 1917, 3 children apparently saw an apparition of the Virgin Mary in a field. Their vision prompted 70,000 people to visit the same sheep pasture and stated that they saw a spinning silver disc in the sky. The children apparently received a message from the specter that said, and I quote, "We are here, we have been since thousands of years ago, and that they will return again," unquote. The Vatican recorded these messages, but to this day they remain censored and locked away. The 3 messages the children received apparently contain evidence of alien life. If they are so afraid of those messages getting out, does it mean whatever they said could change what we know of the scripture?
In our number 10 spot, we have a frozen alien corpse. Scientists have discovered this frozen alien corpse in Russia. It was found by 2 people in Siberia after claims of a UFO came to Earth. Allegedly, it was missed by the Russian military after they cleaned up the area after the crash. The corpse was pretty damaged, but the being was 2 feet high and part of his right leg was missing. Also, apparently this particular area in Russia is a hotspot for UFO sightings, and there are a number of reports of sightings every single year. In fact, there was a sighting that reported seeing a UFO crash in the area, and so the finding of this alien corpse aligns with that sighting. Whoa, I want to go to Siberia now. If there is anyone watching from Russia, from Siberia, please tell us of any other sightings that you may have come across in the comment section below.
Number 9. Paintings. Now let's go well beyond spaceships and astronauts and move into the far more distant past, because alien sightings certainly aren't a new thing and seem to have been around for centuries. One piece of evidence that people often cite is a painting titled The Madonna with Saint Giovannino. It was painted in the 15th century by Dominic Ghirlandaio and appears to depict a UFO flying around in the background, its shape matching up with people's frequent depictions of flying saucers as being alien spacecrafts. There also appear to be beams of light coming out from the bottom of the ship, and this has led people to believe that it is unmistakably an alien craft and not just something else placed up in the sky. And if you take a look at it, it does seem hard to believe that it could be anything else, as what other dark object would make sense to be floating in the sky like that? If you have any ideas, let me know what else you think it might be. Number 8. The Tic Tac UFO. Back in 2004 on the coast of California, a US Navy pilot named David Fravor reported seeing something strange. In fact, he reported seeing something that was, quote, something not from this earth. They were about 60 to 100 miles off the coast of California, and he was leading a strike fighter squadron through some exercises when the incident occurred. He said that he saw a tic-tac shaped vessel flying through the air at incredible speeds, but it wasn't just him who saw it. It was also reported by another flight crew who actually followed after the craft and even filmed it. While the footage was originally kept classified, it's now been made available to the public. The case was then published by the New York Times after the Pentagon acknowledged its Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, which is actually the Pentagon's own 21st century study of UFO sightings. Number 7. Wow! Exclamation point. The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, otherwise known as SETI, is a group that, well, searches for extraterrestrial intelligence. In 1977, a large radio telescope outside of Ohio was scanning the skies on behalf of SETI when they picked up a signal that lasted for 72 seconds. The printouts of readings often included low numbers, which was typically just the background noise that the telescope picked up. But then a scientist noticed that there was a sudden string of letters as well as larger numbers. The letters went all the way up to U, which indicated a signal 30 times stronger than the typical background noise. Upon seeing these consecutive letters, which would represent a very strong signal and something potentially alien, he circled them and wrote the word wow followed by an exclamation point in bright red pen. To this day, we've never really seen anything else like it, and the extraordinary readout has yet to ever be duplicated. Number 6. Viking Mars. Now let's get into some more science-y factual stuff. When people think of aliens, the term that might often come to mind is Martians, being attributed specifically to aliens that reside on the planet of Mars. NASA has sent a lot of things out there, and one expedition was referred to as Viking, them sending out little robots to take readings of the planet. One test that they performed was done on the soil, mixing soil with radioactive carbon-labeled nutrients to see if they would produce radioactive methane gas, this being a chemical sign of life on other planets. And it did, the test coming back with a positive result and finding organic molecules. But NASA just brushed it off, I guess, because they said that the other experiments didn't end up with the same results, so they just said it was a false positive. But one of the original scientists and others who have analyzed the data stand by their discovery, saying that the other experiments had just been ill-equipped for performing the tests and finding the same results. Number 5. Martian Fossil. Let's hear from NASA again, this event taking place in 1996 when they announced that they had found a Martian fossil. They said that they had found fossilized microbes within a lump of Martian rock, a meteorite that is theorized to have been blasted off the planet around 15 million years ago before finally winding up in Antarctica, where it was discovered 12 years prior in 1984. They analyzed it a lot, of course, and found organic molecules as well as small bits of the mineral known as magnetite, which can sometimes be found in Earth bacteria. Researchers also said that under an electron microscope they were able to see traces of nanobacteria. So it seems like evidence is continuing to stack up that other planets are, or used to be, capable of sustaining life. And with a universe as infinitely large as ours, it's hard to say that it's impossible that life on other planets could ever exist. Number 4. The Super Hornet. Let's now take a look at another piece of evidence that came out following the Pentagon's acknowledgement of their Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. This took place back in 2015 on the East Coast and is another video of evidence discovered by the US Navy, this time by a FA-18 Super Hornet, a strike fighter that reaches speeds of up to 2,000 kilometers an hour. That's pretty fast. The pilots see the unidentified object moving at incredibly high speeds over the water and they struggle to keep up but are finally able to get a lock on it. When they do, they start cheering and one even says, "What the F is that thing?" They continue to follow it and seem to be unable to figure out what it possibly could be. This is another piece of evidence that had to go through a declassification process before it could be released to the public. Makes you wonder what other video footage and potential signs of alien life the government might be hiding from us in a filing cabinet labeled classified. Number 3. Chicago O'Hare. In November 2006 in Chicago, Illinois, airline staff and pilots alike were shocked by what they had witnessed. Multiple people reported seeing what they described as a flying saucer in the air. It was an overcast day and the UFO seemed to be just hovering over the Chicago O'Hare airport terminal. They then described how it seemed to shoot up into the air incredibly quickly, so fast that it punched a hole through the cloud cover above it. The FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, described it as simply being a strange weather phenomenon and they wouldn't be investigating it, so don't worry about it. Of course, that's what they want us to think. But so many people at once reporting seeing a flying saucer shooting through the clouds doesn't really sound like a weather phenomenon to me. One flight traffic control official said, "To fly 7 million light years to O'Hare and then have to turn around and go home because your gate was occupied is simply unacceptable." Number 2. SETI readings. Now let's go back to the SETI project again. If you've somehow already forgotten by now, that refers to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Back in 2003, they were using a large telescope in Puerto Rico to re-examine around 200 sections of the sky that had all previously shown unexplained radio signals. All of the signals had disappeared except for one, which had actually become stronger. It came from a spot between the constellations Pisces and Aries where there aren't any known stars or planets. The signal was emitting the frequency for hydrogen, the most common element which both absorbs and emits energy. Some astronomers believing that this is the most likely element aliens might use to send a message to us for this reason. The signal from this spot in space has now been recorded a total of 3 times, and has left many people wondering if it is truly a signal coming from aliens. Number 1. The Phoenix Lights. On March 13th in 1997, an event took place that was referred to as Lights over Phoenix, or the Phoenix Lights phenomenon. On this day, hundreds of witnesses reported seeing otherworldly lights across Arizona, Nevada, and northern Mexico. There were 2 main events, the first being a giant V-shaped aircraft that had 5 lights on it, maybe thrusters, though it apparently didn't make any sound. Then later that night, there were a series of red and orange lights in the sky that didn't appear to move at all. And while air traffic control employees could see the lights in the sky, they couldn't see them on their radars. The governor of the state of Arizona at the time said, "I'm a pilot and I know just about every machine that flies. It was bigger than anything I've ever seen. It remains a great mystery." And it really does remain a mystery. To this day, nobody seems to have any real or solid explanation for what the large spacecraft and the lights might have been. It was said that it was a military flare drop, but this came after their original statement that they had no planes in the air, and even a recreation of the event didn't line up with what people had seen, flares flickering and burning out after only a few seconds. I have an explanation though, it was aliens.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Barrier Canyon pictographs. Located in the southwest, the Barrier Canyon is a remote area in Utah. There you will find amazing pictographs that date back to thousands of years ago. Here's the thing, people are like, "Bro, those pictures look an awful lot like aliens." Most of the figures displayed there are quite odd. They are around 8 feet tall and shaped like a human, but have no arms, legs, ears, or noses. They do, however, have big alien-like eyes. Some have been drawn with free-floating eyes, or wings, or with serpents around their hands or above their heads. Other paintings are of animals and humans, but the humans aren't drawn nearly as big as the 8-foot tall weird creatures. The paintings are said to have been done by mixing blood and clay and possibly urine as a binder. Upon analyzing them, they found hair from a paintbrush that dates back to 6750 BCE, meaning maybe people back then were in contact with these humanoid alien type creatures. I mean, they would have had to had a big impact on their life in order for them to have been painted. In our number 9 spot, we have traces of potential alien DNA. Scientists have recently discovered traces of DNA outside some of the Antarctic caves, which could suggest alien life. From algae DNA to small animals, there was so much evidence to support the idea that perhaps there once was a lot more living species in Antarctica. They did not come across any animals in the caves at the time, but they still found this to be a great discovery and have reason to believe that they will discover more evidence as they continue their search, or perhaps alien life might be underneath the ice sheets as there are warm temperatures coming from underneath the sheets, and that would suggest that it might be a place they could easily live in. In our number 8 spot, we have UFO discovered. That's right, in October of 2020, satellite photos of Antarctica were taken that had many people stop in their tracks. Surrounded by ice and snow, and with some ice still on it, we see an object that looks like half of a flying saucer that is also a bit raised, casting a shadow around it. As the ice sheets continue to melt around the world, it is believed that is why it has now been revealed, and it is also believed that this is potentially an aircraft from thousands if not millions of years ago. According to experts, Antarctica would be a great place for aliens to go to because of how sterile it is, so it would make sense to land there. Of course, this is all speculation and there's nothing further on this discovery at this time. In our number 7 spot, we have the Alaskan alien. On January 3rd, 1989, NASA's Alaska York Station made a great discovery. They found an alien frozen in ice. Yep, an alien, just like you see in the movies with the great big eyes and bald head. Makes you wonder if perhaps the movies are showcasing these creatures the same because we've already discovered aliens and someone somewhere is telling illustrators to paint them a specific way. I wish I was someone that had pull to know all of this top secret information, although I guess if I was, then I wouldn't be able to make this video as I would probably have a target on my back. There is no other information on this discovery as it is considered top secret, but it is definitely a sign that alien life has been to this planet. In our number 6 spot, we have alien eggs. In 2015, it was reported that 2 friends were walking along a frozen lake in Utah when they discovered the most peculiar thing. There was a strange formation in the middle of the lake that honestly gives me shivers to look at. If you are someone that feels uncomfortable looking at a bunch of dots together or eyeballs looking at you, definitely look away. This has the same sort of displeasing effect. Small holes were seen poking out from the ice with a strange formation lying underneath them. The theories around what this is include a UFO landing spot, something that aliens left when they visited Earth, and the popular theory is alien eggs. There were some things there that were slimy, so the 2 friends left them, and that's why people believe them to be eggs. What do you think this is? Let me know in the comment section below. In our number 5 spot, we have unknown frozen creatures. More frozen creatures in Siberia, you say? Yep, clearly this is an alien breeding ground of some sort. Strange creatures were recently found throughout Siberia. Many of these unknown creatures were found deceased and frozen in huge blocks of ice. There are creatures that have never been discovered which are believed to be alien, and even a species of dog was discovered that is so old it goes back to 1000 AD. Wow, well, I guess we're all going to have to plan our trip to Siberia, eh? I've always wanted to go on an alien expedition, so this is definitely where I will be going next. In our number 4 spot, we have frozen on Mars. Okay, this one is like a little bit of a stretch as this evidence was not found frozen on this planet, but it is evidence of alien life and it was found on Mars, and Mars can get to a temperature of minus 60 degrees Celsius, which is way past freezing, so whatever. Imagine that this evidence was found frozen, as it could very well have been. I just can't prove that and I wanted to share this anyway. In 1976, the Viking Mars landers detected chemical signatures that indicated potential past life on the planet, or perhaps present life. An experiment mixing soil with radioactive carbon-labeled nutrients tested positive, and even though other tests done at the time did not test positive, the original scientists and others that have reanalyzed the data still stand by the original finding. There is definitely a possibility of alien life on Mars. In our number 3 spot, we have aliens in the water. In an interview in 2017, ex-NASA scientist Alan Stern spoke about the theory of alien life underwater frozen. He mentions that aliens are bound to exist and that scientists should focus more on water worlds. When he was asked about why aliens haven't been found to date, he was quoted as saying that there are many possible explanations. The great majority of worlds with biology and civilizations are water-ocean worlds. ETs at the bottom of ocean worlds would be protected from the likes of deadly radiation from space, if their planet does not have a protective atmosphere like it does here on Earth, and exploding stars. He went on to speak about how ocean worlds are usually freezing cold and that these aliens would be living beneath a thick sheet of ice, and that is what would make it impossible to contact them. Fascinating. I could totally see this to be true as there's so much of the ocean that we haven't even begun to explore yet. In our number 2 spot, we have alien fossils from Antarctica. Whoa, this is a wild one. In 1996, NASA scientists announced that they came upon a meteorite that appeared to be from Mars. A fossilized microbe in a potato-shaped lump of Martian rock was how it was described. It is believed that the meteorite was possibly from Mars and blasted off in a collision and wandered the solar system for, approximately 15 million years before coming to Earth and freezing for a little while in Antarctica. After further analysis of the rock, it apparently contained organic molecules and tiny specks of mineral magnetite as well as nanobacteria. There is much debate about whether this fully indicates alien life, but a lot of scientists believe that it does. In our number 1 spot, we have a frozen ancient civilization. In 2017, there was a whistleblower by the name of Corey Goad, who claimed that it was discovered that an ancient alien civilization is frozen and buried under 2 miles of ice in Antarctica. Apparently, this discovery was made in 1939 by a German expedition, but it was only until 2002 that archaeologists and scientists were allowed on the site. Apparently, Goad originally only knew about this secret expedition because of a USAF officer working in the program, but eventually Goad himself journeyed to Antarctica with the US Air Force to witness this secret project, where they have discovered the ruins of a 55,000-year-old alien civilization. Not much more was revealed, but hopefully in the next 10 years we will learn more about these findings.
Number 10. UAP report. Alien fans and skeptics alike were pretty shocked when just a few months ago the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, said that they believed in aliens. Well, actually, they said they were going to be investigating unidentified flying objects, but close enough. While some people did believe that this was NASA saying, hey, we believe in aliens, it was actually them announcing they were going to launch a study into UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, because I guess they're just too good to say UFO. The scientist coordinating the study said, over the decades, NASA has answered the call to tackle some of the most perplexing mysteries we know of, and this is no different. In the report, they said that a good chunk of confirmed unidentified objects seem to show evidence that they were made using advanced technology that humans just don't have yet.
Moving on at number 9, we have the rock paintings. For years, archaeologists in Sharma, India have been baffled by these weird ancient rock paintings. The paintings are around 10,000 years old and they look like they depict aliens and UFOs. Archaeologist Junior Back said, and I quote, "The findings suggest that humans in prehistoric times may have seen or imagined beings from other planets. Some of the paintings show these weird alien-shaped figures with massive heads, whereas other drawings are of what appears to be UFO spaceships. In other pictures, these weird humanoid figures are wearing what appears to be spacesuits. In fact, locals in the village would worship the paintings and tell great stories about small people coming down from the sky in round-shaped flying objects, abducting people, and then never returning." So, were the prehistoric people just super creative, or were they actually greeted by these aliens?
Moving on to number 8, we have Saint Wolfgang and the Devil. This painting was created in the 15th century by famous German Renaissance painter Michael Pacher. It was painted based on the legend about Saint Wolfgang tricking the devil into building a church. So yes, that green guy with the weird face on his ass is supposed to be the devil. But people are like, really? That's an alien. I mean, yes, I admit that this creature doesn't look like a traditional devil, but over the years the devil has been depicted in a number of different forms, including something like this. But no, a number of people strongly believe that it's not the devil he was in contact with, but it was aliens instead, and apparently aliens have faces on their bums. Moving on to number 7, we have the crucifixion of Jesus. Okay, this one is wild. Buckle your seatbelts. So take a look at this painting from 1350. It was created by an unknown artist for the Decani Monastery. The artist signed his name Serge, but there's no historical records of anyone with such name. So right off the bat, people are like, okay, so who created this piece? Especially because in the top right and left hand corners of the piece there are 2 UFOs with passengers inside. In the right corner, the pilot in the UFO seems to be looking all the way back at the craft behind him. Now I don't know about you, but no normal human being can do that with their neck unless they're an alien or an owl. On top of it all, this work would have had to been approved on the detail or else the whole piece would have been repainted. So someone saw this and was like, yep, that's accurate, looks good, meaning aliens were present during Jesus' crucifixion? Also, they didn't have spacecrafts back then, or any flying things. But those 2 people are certainly flying in something, alright? So what's the deal? Well, one explanation is that those 2 UFO things are supposed to represent the sun and the moon, or 2 divine beings watching over. But a lot of people are just like, no, they're aliens. In our 6th spot today we have the Madonna. Painted in the late 1400s, this is a beautiful painting of the Madonna with infant Jesus and St. John. But if you look in the background, there appears to be a weird spacecraft floating in the sky. In fact, it is emitting beams of light, and the man in the back with the dog is looking up at it with his mouth open like, what the heck is this? Like he's in awe of it. Even the dog is looking up at it like, what the hell is going on here? This craft looks a lot like a UFO. I mean, come on, there's even light rays coming out of it, so what else could it be? Again, people argue saying that maybe it's an angel or some sort of holy entity looking down on her. But there's no wings or a body of an angel, and this wasn't the typical way to portray angels, so it seems quite odd and out of place to say the least. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Leonardo da Vinci's paintings. A lot of people think that Leonardo da Vinci was in contact with aliens and was trying to tell us through hiding secret messages in his paintings. First off, people thought that Leo was way ahead of his time. Like he was drawing pictures of helicopters in 1493 before it was even a thing. He also talked about ships that could travel underwater, submarines. Like he came up with a lot of modern day inventions somehow back then. So people were like, okay, he's either a time traveler or an alien, or he's in contact with aliens and they were telling him how to advance society. Now, here comes the freaky part. Someone mirrored and lightened his painting of St. John the Baptist, and it appears as if there's an alien face in there. It is truly quite freaky. It straight up looks like an alien from The Predator or something. Then you have his famous work of art, the Mona Lisa. Turns out if you do the exact same thing to this painting, you also see an alien's face. So, what do you think? Was Leo subtly trying to tell us something? If so, why would he make it so hard for us to find? Also, I want to know who went around like mirroring and lightening these images. Like, were they purposely looking for a coded message? Should we be doing that to all paintings or what? Moving on, at number 4 we have the glorification of the Eucharist. This is another religious painting that might include signs of alien life. So in this painting from the 17th century we see God and Jesus looking out over God's kingdom. But what's weird is that there is this weird round object between the two with antennas sticking out of it. It looks a lot like Russia's Sputnik satellite. Now, the sphere is the creation globe, like to represent Earth and the cosmos. But people argue that if that was so, then how come there's no stars? And how come it looks like it has almost a metallic reflection? And what about the antennas, okay? Some say that it's magic wands, but it can't be because they look like they retract, like antennas. I don't know about this one, okay? There's two theories. One, aliens provided them with such a device, or two, someone is a time traveler. I don't even know anymore. Coming in at number 3, we have no Chiri. This illustration is part of a UFO legend from the 1800s. The fact that back then they had stories talking about spacecrafts and extraterrestrials makes it seem like aliens are indeed real. This Japanese story talked about a sailor finding a weird floating craft in the ocean, which is what this picture depicts. According to the story, the craft was an object made from steel and glass, and was big enough to fit a small human inside. On top of that, they said inside of the craft was a small script that they couldn't decipher. Probably because it was like in an alien language, I don't know. But anyways, what are the odds that this story perfectly describes UFOs and drew them just like we picture them nowadays? In our second spot, we have the Paleolithic rock painting. This for sure is a painting of a UFO spaceship, and no one can tell me differently. Like, there's no way this isn't. Like, come on, as a kid, that's how I drew UFOs. What else is it meant to be if it's not an alien spacecraft? Anyways, this painting was found deep inside of a cave in Neo, France. It's dated back to 13,000 BC, which is insane because obviously they didn't have any flying devices back then, so what is this a picture of? Maybe they really did come across a UFO. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Dracula's UFO. Not gonna lie, this is another really freaking weird one. This is a 16th century painting of Dracula's castle, like the real life Dracula, aka Vlad the Impaler. Well, hovering right above the castle in the sky is what looks like a UFO spacecraft. Not only that, but in 2014, a tourist photographed a very similar UFO right above a building in the same area. Could it be that Vlad was actually an alien? Like, what if aliens need to feed off of humans to stay alive, and that's why Vlad did what he did? Because in reality, he was an alien, not a vampire.
Number 10, the pyramids. Here is the thing about ancient things we don't understand. They didn't have tractors or power tools. How on earth did they build these things? The belief that aliens helped build the pyramids has been a conspiracy theory since before the dawn of the internet. So let's dive in, shall we? The pyramids at Giza in Egypt were built around 4,500 years ago to serve as the resting place for great pharaohs and queens. And they are massive. The Great Pyramid is made of millions of precisely carved stones, about 2 tons each. Not pounds, tons. 1 ton is about 2,000 pounds, so yeah. Even with today's equipment, it would be a massive challenge. There's also the factor of their precise alignment with Orion's belt that has alien theorists super excited. Another factor that has conspiracies buzzing is that these pyramids are somehow in better shape than the ones built after them. Scientists still don't quite know how they were built, so that's where aliens come in. Due to their complexity and size, aliens or some outer celestial force could be an explanation, but the leading theory is that they were built through the use of many hands. But even still, something doesn't click there. I think humans were a lot smarter than we often give them credit for, so I'm gonna admit I'm skeptical of the aliens theory, but I'm open to it. And I'm definitely open to all the others on this list.
Number 9, injuries. A Freedom of Information Act request caused 1,500 pages of UFO reports and evidence to be declassified and leaked to the public. And what the pages contained was pretty shocking for those who read it. A percentage of the pages included information of how people who reported seeing UFOs and aliens had been legitimately physically affected, real physical evidence that something unexplained had happened to them. Some of the reports included things like burns, which could have been caused by the jets of a UFO or potential face-to-face alien interference. Bafflingly, they also confirmed that women who had come into contact with aliens shortly fell mysteriously pregnant after the event, with no explanation as to why they were suddenly with child. Yes, we all know by now how mommy and daddy make babies, but that apparently wasn't a factor in these cases. Alien babies potentially on the way. Number 8, FLIR. Alongside these 1,500 documents, 3 separate videos were released that appeared to show UFOs being spotted by the United States military, so let's take a look. The first is titled FLIR and was originally filmed back in 2004 when the USS Nimitz was flying off the coast of Southern California. There had apparently already been an unidentified aircraft in the area for up to a week before the video was filmed. Off the coast, they spotted a large oval-shaped object, estimating it to be about 40 feet long and white in color. 4 people on the craft saw the object for a running total of about 5 minutes, although the video is only just over a minute. They were able to track it using their advanced infrared camera, and due to the object's shape, they nicknamed it the Tic Tac. All these videos to this day have no real explanation for what the UFOs actually were. Number 7. Gimbal. Next up on the list we have the video titled Gimbal, which was leaked alongside the last one I just talked about. This one's different because we can hear the people in the jet reacting to what they're seeing. They use a similar infrared camera and follow the object that was flying over the east coast. At first, they comment that it might be some kind of drone, but then note that it is fighting against incredibly strong winds and appearing to not be affected by it at all. They even comment that there are other unidentified crafts in the area, but we don't actually see them as it's locked onto the target. What's interesting about this one, as the people in the video point out, is that it moves in an incredibly strange fashion, appearing to rotate and move around despite the heavy winds it's apparently fighting against. My favorite part of this is that there's one guy calmly stating facts about it while the other cusses and yells in excitement. Is that a f***ing drone, dude? Number 6. Go fast. The third and final leaked video is probably the best of the bunch, as the video starts before they have managed to lock onto the target and you can see it moving. The video is pretty correctly titled Go Fast because this thing is moving incredibly fast, like definitely faster than anything else that could have been an easy explanation. It's zipping over the top of the water as they try to get their camera to lock onto it, and when they finally do, they start cheering because of just how difficult it was due to how fast the object was moving. Their comments are a mix of excitement and confusion in regards to what they've managed to find, saying, "Look at that thing fly," while also going, "What the f*** is that thing?" People often like to write off UFOs as some sort of secret military practice vessels or training project, so what can it be when the military itself doesn't know what they saw? Number 5. Pentagon Report. In May of this year, the Pentagon appeared on a panel where they discussed UFOs, and they revealed just how much information they have about the situation. They said that there are around 400 separate reports of unidentified flying objects coming from military personnel. So while we do have the 3 leaked videos, there are likely even more locked up in a safe somewhere that offer convincing evidence of the existence of aliens. The Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence said, "We've seen an increasing number of unauthorized and/or unidentified aircraft or objects, and military control training areas and training ranges and other designated airspace. Reports of sightings are frequent and continuous." While it definitely sounds like he's trying to sweep it under the rug as someone just like flying a drone illegally onto a military base or something, I think it's safe to say the military have the resources to know if it were something as simple as that. So their confusion and uncertainty makes it seem more and more like aliens are among us. Number 4. Live stream. In 2016, an incident occurred during NASA's live feed from a camera mounted on the International Space Station that pointed towards the Earth. You can see the Earth's curve, and one viewer noticed that for a short moment, a massive bright object can be seen falling towards the planet. But as quickly as it comes, it's gone as the live feed conveniently cuts out and experiences technical difficulties. The video was posted to YouTube, and people immediately started theorizing that NASA had intentionally cut the live feed at this moment to cover up the fact that this bright shape was a UFO, or at least something alien in origin. Many people noted how suspicious this was and started calling out NASA for their actions, while other people were saying that it was just a meteor or some hunk of space junk. A spokesperson for NASA said that the cameras are controlled automatically, and it had simply passed out of range, causing the video to be cut off. But that's just what they want you to think. Number 3. Alien junk. An astrophysicist from Harvard wrote a book that was titled Extraterrestrial: The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, and it was about how he believed that an object that passed through the solar system in 2017 was actually a piece of alien technology, bringing forward the theory that NASA is actually just ignoring real evidence of alien existence because they're just brushing it off as some random space junk. Whether they believe it really is space junk or they're just trying to make us think that that's what it is. The object was long and not shaped like any known comet we've ever seen before. It also apparently accelerated away from the sun, and he believes it ended up in our solar system accidentally thanks to aliens, saying, "A buoy, a grid of pods for communication, other intelligent living organisms, defunct technology, or discarded technological trash. These are all plausible explanations." Number 2. Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin was one of a handful of astronauts who were aboard the Apollo 11, the first spaceflight that put humans on the moon with one small step for man. During their journey, however, they saw more than just the moon. Apparently, they may have seen a UFO. They reported seeing large objects that appeared to follow alongside them. It was confirmed not to be the upper stage of the rocket that would have been detached, as this was 6,000 miles away from them at the time. The event was kept under wraps and nobody talked about it until it was brought up years later, sweeping it under the rug as simply a panel that had disconnected from the ship. But again, that's just what they want you to think. The claims coming from a senior NASA scientist who said he had just called up Buzz on the phone and he had agreed. Did you really talk to him on the phone, senior NASA scientist? Did you really? Number 1. ISS report. Alright, this one's not actually NASA because it actually comes from a Russian astronaut aboard the International Space Station, and I'm just gonna count it because it's a pretty cool video. He was on board the ISS using his camera to record the southern lights, which are the same as the northern lights but in the south. It's a time-lapse recording, and for a brief moment you can see a line of large bright lights moving across the sky. In the tweet the astronaut posted, he referred to them as space guests, saying that while it was only a few seconds in the time-lapse, it was actually around 52 seconds in real time. Some people suggest that it may have been some kind of meteor or satellite, but I'm actually a licensed professional and I say that it was aliens.
Number 10, the cherubim. I've talked about cherubim in a previous video and I just have to bring them up again. How does something so terrifying start being depicted as something so cute? When you think of a cherub, you obviously think back on all the times you've seen babies drawn in frescoes in museums and churches, but considering the original description of them, they had to be aliens. They came from the sky, and well, they had 4 wings, 4 heads, one made up of an ox, one a lion, one a man, and one an eagle. So you say? So what? They had an active imagination. But okay, fine. Except for the fact that the cherubim also traveled on some kind of flying, multi-wheeled metallic ship. And did I mention they came from the sky? So, need I say more?
Number 9, Stonehenge. So for similar reasons to the massive building blocks of the pyramids, there are a lot of questions surrounding Stonehenge, and we have to talk about them. Just outside of Salisbury, England, there is a massive circle of 92 stones. We know it was built around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, same time as the pyramids. And the weight of each stone varies from 4 tons to 50 tons. In July 2020, scientists found evidence that the Sarsen stones trace back to westward Wiltshire, around 25 kilometers north of the site. Individually, they weigh around 50,000 pounds. So imagine that. On top of that, scientists have no idea who built it or why. One of the most popular theories is that it was built by the Druids. Stonehenge also aligns with solstices and eclipses, which means whoever built it had their eyes carefully on the sky, probably in relationship to their pagan beliefs. But even still, how? Researchers have some theories that may suggest that they had the technology to accomplish this feat around that time, or did they? There are too many many questions still unanswered for me to be completely sold that it didn't involve aliens. Number 8, Teotihuacan. Keeping with the theme of ancient potentially alien structures, we have Teotihuacan, aka the City of the Gods in Mexico. Though scientists have confirmed that it was built by human hands, many alien enthusiasts still think the jury is still out. Constructed over 2,000 years ago, Teotihuacan age, size, and complexity seems out of this world. The city could house over 100,000 people, and scientists believe that the structure was built through a combined effort of the Maya, Zapotec, and Mixtec people. But something really weird happened on May 4th, 2015. A tourist took a picture of the structure, not thinking anything of it at the time. But when he finally looked down at it, he noticed 2 floating discs above the structure. That, along with the sheer colossal size of the structures, fed the alien conversation. On top of that, as of 2018, scientists have only excavated around 10% of the site. It could be a little over that now, but there are plenty of secrets yet to be revealed, including if those 2 ships were attempting to return to a lost civilization they helped build. Number 7, the Green Children. The story of the 2 children who appeared in the village of Woolpit, Suffolk, England has become what some would call lore, but that doesn't mean to say it didn't stem from something very, very real. In the 12th century, 2 children with vibrant green skin and weird clothes showed up in the village confused and alone. They spoke a language no one understood, but despite that, the village took them in. Initially, the 2 refused any and all food offered to them until they took a liking to raw beans. The more they ate and the longer they stayed, the more the green color began to fade. The 2 children eventually learned to speak English too, just enough to explain where they were from. They spoke of a place where it was perpetually twilight and had been helping their dad with the cattle when a loud bang sounded and they turned up in Woolpit, and there they stayed. The young boy died sadly after, but the little girl ended up growing old in Woolpit, even marrying. Some think they were from a parallel universe, others believe alien teleportation, but follow the paintings and many depictions of them to see if you can decide for yourself. Number 6, Val Camonica, Italy cave drawings. So we talked about petroglyphs last time, and if you don't know, stop this video now and check out part 1 because I talk about it there. Go check out part 1. Pause. You back? Okay, good. For those of you who are like, nah, petroglyphs are tiny little cave drawings depicting everyday life of the ancients, usually carved into bronze or cave walls showing people hunting, gathering, and communing with aliens, you know, that kind of stuff. The Val Camonica cave drawings in Italy fueled a lot of alien hype when they were discovered. Carved some 8,000 to 10,000 years ago before the Bronze Age, the glyphs appear to show men with helmets on their heads and oddly shaped weapons. They even have little lines shooting out from their helmets as if they glowed. Alien hunters around the world consider this as indisputable proof that aliens visited our ancient relatives, so who knows. Number 5, 250,000-year-old aluminum. A couple days ago on date night, we ordered in and the packaging all came wrapped in aluminum. We use it every day. It's one of the most common materials found on Earth, making up approximately 8.2% of the Earth's crust, so we find it a lot. But did you know we only figured out how to extract it in the 1800s? So what the heck was a 5-pound aluminum object doing buried next to 10,000-year-old Macedon bones in Romania? Answer: aliens. No one knew at all around that time what aluminum was or how to extract it, yet aluminum made up 89% of the metal wedge they found. The object was clearly crafted by someone, and many have theorized that it could have been anything from a tool to the landing foot of an alien spaceship. No one knows the answer, so that just leaves one option. Okay, maybe a few, but one guess onto which one is my favorite. Number 4, the Karnak stones. This is like Stonehenge, but 3 times the size, quite literally. On the northwest coast of France in Karnak, 3,000 megalithic granite stones weighing anywhere from 50 to 100 tons are placed in rows over 2 miles long. They were carved from local rock formations and erected 4,500 to 2,500 BC at the end of the Stone Age. It is absolutely mind-boggling, and archaeologists are baffled. Legends say giants built Karnak, but the leading alien theory is that they were built in order to communicate with beings in the sky. What do you think that means? Mainstream archaeologists speculate that they are actually tomb markers, but ancient astronaut theorists began to notice that they are actually laid out in exact geometric positions. The angles are all the same, and they follow the Pythagorean theorem. What and who were they trying to communicate with, and why? All right, before we hit our top 3, if you like this video and you're sticking with it and want a part 3, you know what to do. Like this video, subscribe for more, and comment comment on what you want to see next. Number 3, the Ulfbert swords. Okay, instead of the Lady in the Lake, what if Excalibur was actually given to us by aliens? And by Excalibur, I mean like the closest thing, which were the Ulfbert swords. So you pretty much had to carry a sword with you at all times in medieval times because you just never knew what was around the corner. Thieves, hooligans, who knows? But they were actually pretty expensive. A run-of-the-mill one would cost anywhere between 1,200 to 24 grand in today's prices. But Ulfbert swords were priceless, and the technology it took to make them shouldn't have existed. So how were they made? The Ulfbert swords are a collection of Viking swords dated between 800 to 1000 AD. They were the strongest, sharpest, and most flexible swords ever made, but the technology used to make them couldn't be replicated until the 1900s. The process for combining the materials used to make the swords required an oven set at 1600 degrees Celsius, which was not only hot enough to melt the materials, but also draw any impurities. Then other metals could be added. Production of these swords appears to have ceased within 200 years of their inception, but no other name besides Ulfbert lends a clue as to who made them. So how did they get the technology, and was it actually made by a human, are the two questions that surround these swords. We'll leave it up to, I don't know, the future to decide. I guess we'll never know. Who knows? Number 2, the Dropa stones. Could the Dropa stones be definitive evidence of an ancient alien visitation? Let's discuss. In 1938, 716 12,000-year-old discs were found in a cave somewhere on the border of China and Tibet. Each is 1 foot in diameter, and stranger yet, they seem to depict some kind of strange event. Along the walls of the cave where they were found, strange markings depicting men in round helmets with the sun, moon, and stars surrounding them are on the walls. Even stranger, Dr. Chi Pute also recorded finding strangely shaped skeleton bodies with heads larger than normal. But even more suspiciously, the discs disappeared after the story of the alien visitation was translated from the discs. They were stored in the Beijing University for 2 decades before they were released to be studied finally. However, after the stones were taken down after their exhibition, they haven't been seen since. What do we think, friends? Let us know in the comments. Number 1, Sirpur, India, the Sarang Tila Temple. This structure dates back to the 17th century AD, but was buried by an earthquake in 11th century AD. But somehow, it survived. Blocks were held together by Ayurvedic paste, which was one of the main reasons it survived, along with 3 hollow shafts beneath the structure designed to dissipate an earthquake. The recipe for the paste is 4,500 years old and is from an ancient Indian text called the Maya Mamantan, an architectural manuscript passed down from the king of the demigods Mayasura, who oversaw various construction projects, including cities in the sky. There are many points in the temple that imply that the knowledge came from somewhere else. Even the head archaeologist Dr. Arun Sharma believes that aliens visited and gave the townspeople the technology.
In your opinion, where did this knowledge come from?
Those who are more advanced in other planets used to visit the Earth, and I think they must have given some knowledge to the local people.